If you want to shoot short films and commercials and want to show up with little more than just your camera and lens, here's an inexpensive way to rig up your GH5. Check this out. I love the way movie cameras look. The rig setup with the REs and the red cameras looks amazing. And I want to make sure I'm able to bring something similar to that without having to spend millions of dollars. This whole setup is below $5,000 with a GH5 SmallHD Focus monitor, Rokinon DS lenses, and the rig setup. So let's quickly start with the GH5 with a 2.0 firmware update. This firmware opened up 400 megabit all-eye intraframe codec for 10-bit 4K 422, which means it's not using any digital manipulations to get that 24p look. It's true 24 progressive frames per second. The quality of the video is similar to ProRes and Cinema DNG video files in average quality, but without having to spend so much money to get those kinds of cameras. The file sizes are huge, so you want to get a bigger and faster SD card. I'm using the Lexar Class 3 150 megabits SD card, and it seems to be doing fine recording even at the highest 4K setting. But they recommend that you get the new faster SD card that writes at least 300 megabits per second. I also love the new hybrid log gamma picture profile. It's Panasonic's version of HDR. The colors are beautiful with better dynamic range compared to the standard picture colors. I recommend this setting if you're shooting for fun and don't want to do any heavy color editing in post. It looks amazing right off the camera. And if you're going to do color correction, make sure you use V-Log instead. The firmware update also improved on the autofocus system and the in-camera stabilization. I have the GH4 and it's actually the in-camera stabilization that sold me on the GH5. Now I can use all my prime lenses handheld without having to worry about my shots looking all shaky whenever I have to run and gun. I love how the Rokinon lenses look. Sometimes you want to show up to a gig with a camera that looks professional. Even though the Panasonic 12 to 35mm f2.8 is an awesome lens and works so well with the GH5, your gear just looks so small. You just can't show up to a video gig with a tiny little camera. When you buy the Rokinon lens, avoid getting the Rokinon lens made for Micro Four Third. I have the Nikon version with a speed booster. This combo gives your lens an extra stop. So instead of 1.5 t-stop, you now get about 1.3 t-stop. You get a nice depth of field comparable to a full frame camera. If you get a 35mm lens made for Micro Four Third, you'll actually be getting a closer to 50mm lens. It's zoomed in. With a speed booster, your 35mm lens will have the width similar to a full frame 35mm. Of course, for Micro Four Third distance, it'd be a 20mm. To compare Micro Four Third lens distance with a full frame lens, Micro Four Third 12mm is full frame's 24mm, the wide angle, 20mm is 35mm, and Micro Four Third's 25mm is full frame's 50mm, and so on. It's around there. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. Also, I got the Rokinon DS lens. That's about $700 for the 35mm Nikon version in Amazon, compared to the older non-DS version that's about $500. The only benefit you get from the DS version is that all focus gear is in the same area, so when you have a full rig with a follow focus attached, you can swap lenses without having to adjust the follow focus position. With the older non-DS Rokinon lenses, you have to adjust the follow focus to connect the gears together. I think the lens and quality of the build is the same. To me, the 35mm is their best lens. It's super sharp even at the highest t-stop, and I love the way it looks. I also use the 85mm, but you'll have to bring the t-stop down to about 3.5 to make it sharp. Otherwise, everything looks a little fuzzy at 1.5. I also added an oval cutout and inserted it inside the lens to get that anamorphic look. The bokeh gets distorted vertically, which gives it the anamorphic look. It just doesn't have the lens flare that a real anamorphic lens can give you. I tried putting a fishing line across the front to get that lens flare, but I don't like the way it looks. I love my SmallHD Focus monitor. It's only 5 inches big, which is just perfect so you can see how in focus you are, but just small enough that's light and mobile. It also has an 800 nit display, which means that you could shoot in a sunny day outside and it's very visible. The battery life is great. It also has a rotating swivel adapter that can be flipped to face forward and backwards. And the swivel also has an adapter to attach to the coat shoe. The screen is a touch screen, so you can set up what's important to you, such as focus assist, waveform, or aspect ratio, and swipe to quickly get to your setting. You can also buy the bundle that comes with a dummy battery that allows your GH5 to share that big L series battery, which makes your camera run longer compared to using just the Panasonic battery. This is the Fotga DP500 filmmaker system. I got the matte box not only to make my GH5 look professional, but you can attach ND filters. It has 2 slots, so you can do a combination of an ND filter and a polarizer or a gradient filter. The matte box also swivels, so you can easily open the front and change out the lens without having to take out the whole matte box. It has a rod adapter that allows me to put my monitor on the left side of the rig, or you could shift it to the right side. It has an adapter to hold up the lens, so it's not putting too much pressure on the camera lens mount. It has a follow focus that you can easily reach with the right hand or even have an assistant turn them for you. It has an adapter that allows you to connect to your tripod if you want to quickly use a tripod without having to take the rig apart. It's also a good place to rest your camera when you need to put it down. And make sure it's in the center so that the weight distribution is even and balanced. It has an adapter to hold your camera, and you could easily pull the camera out in case you need to hand hold it for less weight or to shoot in tight areas. It also has a shoulder pad that allows you to put most of the weight on your shoulder so you can shoot all day without your arms getting sore. Check out the Amazon links in the description below if you're interested in purchasing this item for yourself. If you got a question, let me know in the comments. I'll do my best to answer all the questions. And show me what kind of rig you have. I really enjoy looking through them and even learn from some of them so I can improve on my rig. Don't forget to hit the subscription button below, and thank you for stopping by.